You're listening to Power Talk, Berkeley Electric Cooperative's official broadcast about the cooperative, our communities, and ways to use energy wisely. And now, let's join our hosts for today's episode. Good morning and welcome to Power Talk. This is Micah Ponce, the Communications and Media Specialist here at Berkeley Electric Cooperative, joined as always by Miss Libby Roig, the Director of Marketing and Communications.
Good morning, Micah.
Good morning. Well, it is a beautiful day in May, and we have some special guests here in the studio today.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking to Mr. Jason Brown, the Director of Stakeholder Relations for the Charleston Regional Development Alliance.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, the show's over. That's all the time we have.
And not to be forgotten about, of course, our very own CEO, Mr. Mike Fuller, and past board chairman of the CRDA.
All right.
Welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
It's radio, Mike. You got to talk. People don't know you're in here otherwise.
Libby's pretty intimidating. She gave me pretty strict instructions that just sit here.
Just so you know, radio works better when people talk.
He'll jump in soon enough.
And that was my last show, folks.
Yeah, we have an opening now for communication and media specialist.
Like I said, we try to keep things on track, but I don't think we're a minute in, and we're already well off the beaten path. But all right, let's bring it back in, folks.
Yes.
All right, so
Deep
we
breath.
are talking economic development and in the region.
Yeah.
And, Mr. Jason Brown, as a new guest here on Power Talk, one of our ceremonial things that we do is we bequeath you with a pretty new little mug.
Well, thank you.
Never
Thank you very much.
Yes, that brand new. You only get those by suffering through,
30 minutes
show.
of us.
Libby.
A show.
Mike has a whole collection.
Thank you.
And the other part, when we have a new guest on the show, is we ask for a little bit of background, if you can. Sort of introduce yourself, professional, personal. How'd you end up with us today?
Sure, of course. Yeah. Thank you for having us, first and foremost. I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit more about what the Regional Development Alliance is working on and give folks who may not know what we do a little bit more background on the history of our organization. I came to economic development from the private sector most recently, but I have a long employment history working in both government and the private sector, and honed in on economic development more so in the past 5 years, doing economic development work at a local and regional law firm here in town. And then decided to, when an opening arose at the CRDA, I decided to join the team with David, who's been our CEO and president for the past 25 years. And was fortunate to get to work with Mike in the early days because as I joined, he was our current board chair. So we got to know each other pretty closely and pretty intimately. And, I probably ran him off.
Jason's being humble. He was a great hire, great fit for the organization. So
Thank you.
Very lucky to have him.
Thank you.
And CRDA was a formative experience for Mike because you had just started here as CEO when you started your relationship with CRDA.
Right. Yeah. I'd been part of other alliances, but still every alliance is a little bit different. But yeah, I jumped in right off the beginning. So.
Yeah.
Which we appreciated because not only does he represent one of the major players in our market, but also oftentimes being new to market, you find that executives don't want to jump into this kind of work or other kind of economic development or community focused work. So, given the fact that he was able to come in and get up to speed with everything Berkeley Electric Co-op, but also spend his time and energy and efforts on economic development and continuing to bolster the region's industry, we greatly appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, it was really a great introduction, I think, for Mike, because, Jason, for those who may not be aware, CRDA is a network of stakeholders in the region. So investors, business, academic, government partners, all of whom are committed to strengthening the regional employment and building a base of high-value industries to further the Tri-County economy. So tell our audience a little bit more about CRDA and why I think it was such a valuable experience for Mike, its history and how it serves as a catalyst for regional prosperity.
Yeah, that's spot on, Libby. So we're an organization that was actually born out of crisis. So a lot of folks will remember when the Navy base closed in the mid-'90s, the Charleston region got caught up in what was known as BRAC back then, but a lot of military base closures around the country. And unfortunately, we lost a significant not only number of government contracts, federal government contracts, but also employment opportunities for our local population. And so our organization was formed at the time to be sort of the tip of the spear and a catalyst for industry recruitment and talent recruitment to the region, so that we weren't just wishing and hoping Charleston would bounce back, but that we actually had a focused plan and targeted approach to attracting new companies. And so, as Libby mentioned, we have sort of a coalition of investors and stakeholders and county and municipal partners that not only invest in our work, but they lend us their leaders like Mike to also help us sort of sell the region when we have companies or prospects that are interested in potentially locating a portion of their operations here in the Tri-County region. So we represent, we're one of 8 alliances in the state, and we represent Berkeley, Charleston, and Dorchester counties, not only domestically throughout the country, but also abroad. We have a great business development team that travels the globe looking for these opportunities and trying to convince them that Charleston is a great place to do business and work and live. We're blessed with a lot of regional assets, which y'all know well, like our utility companies, but also a world-class port, a world-class airport, amazing quality of life, and now with all the manufacturing that's taken place here over the past 20, 30 years, not only in the Charleston region, but throughout the state of South Carolina, we've been able to show the world, Charleston is a great place to visit, but it's also a place where, Boeing wide-body airplanes are being produced, Mercedes-Benz Sprinter vans, Volvo SUVs, forklifts from Keon, you can go on and on. We have a number of recognizable brands in the market now.
So it's a great place to visit and a great place to invest.
Absolutely.
I'll back up what Jason said too, because to me, and from time to time you'll have people say, okay, what is CRDA, Charleston Regional Development Alliance? But it's really the one because there is a public-private partnership. So it brings together, there's a lot of moving parts to the puzzle, pieces to the puzzle, very dynamic. But through CRDA, that's what brings everybody together to make sure that we're all to come up with strategy. We've got Economic Leadership Council. If there's a innovation hub that we're looking to, how do we drive the things that are going to be important to our economy? What are the types of things that we need? But CRDA is the one that brings those things together, and everybody's sitting in the room at the same time, and that's really the benefit. And I've had multiple organizations that said, okay, how do I get plugged into economic development? That's probably to me the best one because you're going to get the big picture feel of what economic development means in our region.
We appreciate that, Mike. And I think you're spot on. We talk to our counterparts in other parts of the country, and there doesn't seem to always be this kind of alignment between, your industry partners and the private sector companies who are boots on the ground or looking to invest, and the public side. It sort of seems that other places take an approach where they have all of the private sector behind them, and they don't necessarily have buy-in from local public officials and municipalities, or it's the reverse. They have buy-in from their stakeholders and partners on the municipal side or on the public side, but not necessarily on the private sector side. So
I think it bodes well too when we have different industry, and whether it's international or domestic, and we bring them in and they're hearing a consistent message throughout, whether it's public, private, and Jason and David and their team will bring those in, and that's what we want to be. We want to be that show place. We want to be able to give those entities that are looking at the region a consistent message. So.
And clearly it's worked. I mean, since the naval base closed, we have so many wonderful companies investing in the Lowcountry and the growth in population as well. Something's working.
Right.
Well, Jason, in terms of CRDA, how do we engage utilities such as like Berkeley Electric as a partner in economic development? Some of the other local energy providers and just other utilities in general in the area.
Great question, Micah. And I think the best way I can answer that is it's multifaceted, right? So not only are the local utilities major players in investing in our work that allows our team to go out and scout opportunities for the region, but also they play a key role in ensuring that a project can come here and be successful because, especially with the amount of advanced manufacturing occurring here, and you talk about some of the larger projects that have been able to come to fruition in our region recently, and going back several years, it wouldn't be possible without without the power companies, without the co-ops. We couldn't say to companies who are looking for a certain load or whatever they need, whatever their specific energy needs are. Our business development team works hand in hand with our local energy providers whenever an RFI comes in to ensure that we're not going to overpromise and underdeliver. Right. So and Mike can speak to that even better. I mean, you guys play a key role in making this happen.
Well, I think we've done different meetings where we've brought Dominion, Santee Cooper, myself, and we've talked about infrastructure. What are our strengths? What's our opportunities, and frankly, what's our threats, and why is it a threat? What is our next step of generation? But I think because we have a diverse group of businesses and industry in our area, we all learn from one another. So yeah, we may understand that, but we cannot assume that everybody understands electric utility infrastructure. So then we can share that. But at the same time, we also know that we don't necessarily know about the roads, or we don't know about some of the things that's going on at the port. So that's why it's important that we all understand what others' strengths or weaknesses are. So that's bringing all the utilities and all the infrastructure together is what really I see CRDA being one of their possibilities, just to be that cohesion, to bring everyone together.
Well, and piggybacking on that, the theme of the day is kind of collaboration. And again, like to Mike's point, we, I think, are in a unique position where our utility companies, even if they're technically competitors on paper, they work together, they collaborate, their executives know each other, they spend time together, they communicate effectively across channels, because we also find ourselves in this position where if we want to continue to grow and prosper from an economic development standpoint, we're going to have solutions to some of our future energy questions and challenges that require all of the major energy players working together.
Right. I think at the end of the day, and this term's may be overused, but a high tide floats all the boats. Yeah. At the end of the day, we are for South Carolina, and we are more specifically committed to our region. So regardless if we're competitors or not, we all benefit from working together.
Well, and not even if we don't serve industry, maybe it's on somebody else's lines, our members may still work there. That's right. At whatever they're making.
I mean, yeah, Volvo is one of the things. It's located in a different co-op service territory, but a lot of the satellite industries are located in ours. So, I mean, working together with them to make sure that, all of the infrastructure is in place benefits both them and us. And then also working with other local utilities like Home Telephone. They're out there bringing fiber and internet to our members and expanding that throughout the region, which is also, key to infrastructure as well.
Yeah, you got to have electricity to do a lot of this work, but you can't get very far without internet access.
Right.
So.
Absolutely. Home Telecom has been another one of our amazing investors and partners. They've been phenomenal for this part of the state, and just such a huge asset for us to have, because to y'all's points, it wouldn't work. If the energy could be there, but if, if you don't have the next step, then where do you go from there? Yeah. And others. I mean, AT&T has been, making tremendous strides throughout our region and the rest of the state as well, but especially in Berkeley County, Home Telecom has really done amazing work.
Yeah, definitely. Well, as I mentioned earlier, the Tri-County has experienced exponential rate in the last few decades. We recently had our Vice President of Engineering on Power Talk, and we were reflecting at the start of his career to now, and the peak load that Berkeley Electric has served has tripled in the time he's been here, in about 20 years. So we've got tons of growth, tons of things happening positively. Why is economic development still important, and what keeps us competitive in the recruitment environment?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Libby. So, if we're of the mindset at CRDA that we want to continuously be in growth mode. And I think anybody in the business sector in our region is pretty much aligned with that notion as well. The kind of growth and how much depends on what's previously occurred. Mm-hmm. So now we sort of have this this dynamic where each of the 3 counties we serve have different needs, mm-hmm. and we try to meet them, and our team works with their individual teams at each county level to ensure that we're going after the kind of stuff they want to see, mm-hmm. and it's going to fit in with sort of the trajectory that their leaders at each of the 3 counties are setting.
Yeah.
So again, alignment. We've traditionally been able to go after certain clusters of industry, but now you can get even more specific depending on which county you're talking about. The counties have very different geographic footprints. Mm-hmm. They all have very different capabilities at this point, given where they are in their economic development journey. Mm-hmm. And so we're always mindful of that, and our business development team does a great job coordinating with each of them to ensure that we're bringing them the kind of projects that are going to add value. I think across the board, it's funny because anytime we have a new investor with Charleston Regional Development Alliance, or a new company that's new to town, who may not be like a large manufacturer, they often tell us that they've come to Charleston, or they're opening a Charleston office because of the growth. People are moving here, the 42 to 44 a day, depending on who you listen to. So that doesn't deter anybody in terms of worrying about, well, where are we going to find the workforce for my company? And then if you're talking about growth, we're always in the conversation with Nashville and Raleigh and other places throughout the country that have seen an exponential amount of growth, and a lot of companies are chasing growth. So we see it's most pronounced in certain sectors, but I think it's a healthy recognition that as long as you're growing, and growing in a way that's sustainable for your region, you're in a place that's healthy, and we're very thankful for that. It's a fortunate position to be in. It's a huge blessing because we travel to parts of the country that are not in the same disposition. They have people moving away. They can't attract a younger population base, and there are not major investments being made in those regions. So the challenges we face here, although they seem daunting sometimes to our neighbors and friends, we would much rather have these problems than
trying to accommodate all the growth instead of dealing with the fact that you're shrinking.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I've mentioned this on another episode, but right before we moved back, I grew up in Walterboro, but right before we moved back, we were living in the Midwest, and when we put our house for sale, the value of the home had depreciated in the 6 years we owned it.
Wow.
Whereas here, you're seeing properties appreciating 20, 30, 40, 50% over the last couple of years because of all the growth. So, yes, we are very fortunate to have these issues.
Well, folks, we're a little bit about halfway through the show, and we're sitting down with Mr. Jason Brown, the Director of Stakeholder Relations for the Charleston Regional Development Alliance, and our own CEO, Mr. Mike Fuller. But we'll get to you in a moment, Mike. Hold your horses.
You got a question.
He's been real chatty today, so we're trying to.
I'm here with Libby.
We're talking a lot about new businesses and encouraging new businesses to the region, but what about existing businesses? People who've already made a commitment to the Lowcountry by investing their resources here. So how does the CRDA support them?
That's another great question, Micah. So we recently had a new economic development regional strategy commission by EY Ernst & Young, and had a big strategy rollout at our leadership luncheon about a month ago. And this is a huge part of that, 8 or 9 month long process, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to move to something else and make or have the unintended consequence of everyone thinking, oh wait, is the CRDA getting away from doing what they've always done
Right.
or been supportive of? And the answer to that is no. It's sort of a exercising both muscles movement for us, where we want to continue to do everything we can to make sure our existing industry is strong and healthy. And if our business development team needs to recruit a supplier or anybody down the chain that helps bolster their operations here, we're doing that. Also looking to have the Charleston region be sort of known as a place for innovative companies and, companies who are in the life sciences space, companies that are in the tech space, working in robotics or AI, attracting that kind of industry to the region. And like, as Mike mentioned earlier, them potentially collaborating with the Innovation District that we know the Medical University of South Carolina is spearheading, and any of the hubs that spin out of that. We want to do that as well. We want to, it's the whole walking and chewing gum at the same time, right? Like, we want to be known for a diverse set of industry opportunities. And I think, we don't have to get into anything specific about what's happening right now, but you never want, my grandmother used to say, don't put all of your eggs in the same basket, right?
Right.
A little bit of diversification for our industry sectors and our local economy, we think at CRDA is overall a good thing. And if there are any, economic downturns, hopefully we will help better position, the region to weather any of those storms that may be on the horizon.
Right.
Yeah. So, Jason, how does CRDA align economic development with community development? And, we talked about the importance of the public-private partnerships, but how specifically does CRDA engage our municipalities and county governments in your efforts?
Well, traditionally, that's a great question, Libby. Traditionally, we haven't really, but it's a question that we're getting and receiving from our investors and the counties and our municipalities more often than not. We've always sort of stayed on mission and focused on industry recruitment and talent recruitment.
Gotcha.
And, that's worked. 30 years of that. It's been fairly successful. And we haven't received many complaints lately about, the fact that we've sort of stayed in that lane. But I think we're coming to recognize that our efforts impact all of those challenges, to your question. And so we sort of started looking at ways we can think innovatively about how our organization, the Economic Leadership Council in particular, can have an impact, or at least try to be a force for change as we're looking at some of those challenges, whether you're talking about, workforce housing or the availability of childcare for individuals in the workforce, transportation and infrastructure funding that sort of dogs our region, despite the fact that we have a robust amount of industry and business activity and growth. And so, our first foray into that has been to work with a partner in Charlotte to try to catalyze at the behest of our Economic Leadership Council, which Mike also serves on. They looked at a number of challenges that are facing the region, whether it was internet availability, transportation issues, workforce housing, and they said, okay, you guys come up with something that we could potentially collectively put our might and our muscle behind. And if it's been proven to work somewhere else or sounds good, like, maybe we can do it. And right now we're trying to bring an innovative workforce housing model to the Charleston region that's been successful in Charlotte now twice. And in a nutshell, it's basically a private equity style fund that allows the group, anybody invested in the fund, to purchase multifamily buildings that are 20, 30 years old, renovate them, deed restrict them for a period of years, and then offer them to the general public for workforce housing or affordable housing. And they've done that now twice in Charlotte, added about 2,000 new multifamily units to the city of Charlotte, Mecklenburg County. And it's not the answer to the solution. It's a portion of the answer.
Yeah.
And so that's it's an investment. It's different than anything else we've seen out there, because there is a return on the money that investors invest in the fund. It's not the same as a typical commercial real estate deal. It's more in the 6 to 8% range instead of the 16 to 18% range. But we see that as an innovative approach to tackling some of these economic adjacent issues, economic development adjacent issues that we haven't typically waded into, that we've left to other groups. And it's our way of acknowledging that, the companies we bring here, the people that we help attract, it has an impact on these challenges.
Yeah, definitely.
Do I get to talk now, Libby?
Yes. Mike, do you have a question?
Oh, kind of a question comment, but patiently waiting. And I think Jason hit on it several times, but it's exactly how I look at CRDA. Is it's an investment. This isn't a donation.
Yeah.
It's our investment in the community, and we safe, reliable, affordable power. Why is a utility involved in that? Well, because this is our community.
Yep.
This is where we started 85 years ago, but looking at this as an investment into our future. And I think that's the way most of the businesses look at is this is an opportunity for us to invest in our future. It's the collaboration. It's the partnership. So how do we, instead of sitting on the sideline looking in and wondering, hey, I wonder what's going on, this is our opportunity to get in the game. And there's probably at least 3 or 4 of us here at Berkeley that are involved, whether it's through committees, whether it's through different aspects of CRDA. But CRDA is looking to our investors in this area to help drive the narrative of, we know where we're at today, but where do we want to be 2 years from now, 5 years from now? So that's that collaboration and partnership, but it's an investment in our own future. And that's what CRDA is. So one more question. I'm not sure how much time we've got left, but say someone's new to the area, or maybe it's an established business, but they say, hey, this is our time to get in. We can play a role in the infrastructure, the talent development, those types of things, the housing aspect. That's something, affordable housing is always out there. How does someone become a part of CRDA? How do they become a part of CRDA, and what does that look like? How do you get those groups together to ensure that we're fulfilling the mission and vision and values of CRDA?
Great question, Mike. And we actively, especially for new to town companies, we actively target those folks to ask the question like, hey, here's what we do, here's our mission, this is what we've done over the past 30 years. Would you and your company be successful? Can you support with an investment in the work? And then we also receive people from others like yourself, other CEOs, other leaders of organizations and companies who say, hey, if you want to get involved and get active, and this is something that you can do that's positive, here's what they've been able to do for our company, here's what they've done for the region. We get a few people who trickle into the website, crda.org. But I mean, you can, our information is readily accessible online. You can, my cell phone number is on our webpage, much to my wife's chagrin. So we're always looking for new community leaders. And we have, I probably would be remiss if I didn't explain this, but we have a large board, as you know, and then our Economic Leadership Council is much smaller because it's our top level investors like Berkeley Electric Co-op. So it's a little bit more, and you don't want that group to be big because it's an adjacent group with a dotted line to our board of directors. They can work on some of these bigger picture issues and challenges because it's the CEOs of some of our larger companies throughout the region. Collectively, the Economic Leadership Council accounts for 10% of everyone employed in the Tri-County region. The companies do. So those folks can get together with Mike and say, hey, we want to do something. And most people aren't going to say, well, why are you guys doing that? Our board is larger intentionally because we don't have, in the Charleston region and really throughout South Carolina, we don't have a ton of corporate headquarters. We have a lot of manufacturers, a lot of operations that are smaller in scope. And so we have to have a large tent that includes everybody in the region in a lot of different industry sectors. And collectively, those leaders in those companies help propel us forward, and they're the reasons why we punch above our weight class. With an MSA in the, consistently ranked somewhere between 70 and 75, we compete with, in terms of job creation and, announcements of companies and CapEx and all those things over time. I'm not saying year in, year out, with MSAs much larger than ours. We're usually in the top 25 in categories like job creation. And we have a population of less than 900,000 people. And we're up against, municipalities and MSAs that are 3 times the size of Charleston, right? So I think it goes to not only it shows the outside world, this is a place for business that is business friendly. And it also has a ton of regional leaders and companies that are focused on keeping it healthy and keeping it growing in the right way. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, to your point about, just like the healthiness and growing in a way that makes sense for our region. Last year, the state of South Carolina saw $8.1 billion in new investment in our state. Okay, 4.44 of that was in the Tri-County region, and a good percentage of that $4.4 billion invested in the Tri-County region was existing industry companies. So, each of the 3 counties saw over $1 billion of new investment, and most of it was from companies that are already here.
Yeah.
Well, that's very encouraging.
Yeah.
So we got a strong economic outlook here in the Lowcountry, and we appreciate you bringing your message for CRDA and telling us a little bit about the organization and what they're doing. But folks, believe it or not, that's going to do it for this edition of Power Talk. Thank you for tuning in, and this is the official broadcast of your electric cooperative, and you can catch up on past episodes on streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple, and iHeartRadio. And as always, get a behind-the-scenes look on Berkeley Electric's YouTube channel. So until next time, this is Power Talk, signing off.